Well then, crazy. So awesome.
This video is brought to you by all my Patreon supporters. Go Team Awesome! Hi, I'm Oz. I'm from Canada. I've been living in Japan since 2011. I currently live and work in a small town in Chiba, which is the prefecture next to Tokyo. I, along with everybody in Japan and around the world, have been affected by the coronavirus. I'm a little bit luckier than some people like in Tokyo because I live in a small town further away. If you do want to know how it affects me personally with my work and my life, then check out this card over here. If you click on that, that'll take you to the video where I talk about my life directly affected by coronavirus. Before I answer in my opinion if I think Japan is doing enough, I want to talk about the rest of the world a little bit too, just basically, especially looking at some stats. I'm actually using a website. I think it's pretty accurate, it's pretty up to date compared to other sites that I've checked. I think it's called WorldOMeter. This is probably going to be uploaded a few days later, so probably the stats are completely off by then, probably a lot higher by then, but I'm just going to talk about what's been happening since today, which is April 24th. So as you can see, there's about 2.7 million cases around the world and over 190,000 deaths. And if we look at the worldwide, looking at the closed cases, it looks like there's about a 20% death rate, which is, I guess, good that 80% of the people survive it around the world, so that's good. Now let's take a look at the countries with the most cases, I guess the top 5 being USA, Spain, Italy, France, and Germany. And as you can see, in terms of death in those countries, US has 50,000, more than 50,000, which is double that of the second highest, which is Spain. And in the top 5, Germany, for some reason, has only 5,000 deaths, which is the smallest in the top 5. Compared to the other 4, and it's small by a lot. And why is Germany so much lower in deaths than all the other 4 countries? I don't know. Is it because they're healthier, or they're doing more tests, or catching it earlier? Maybe they're better at social distancing, or some specific rules or conditions in the country. I didn't do too much research on that, so I'm not sure. And I think in this WorldOMeter's website, it lists every single country that has a case of coronavirus, and it looks like Japan is the 24th highest with just over 12,000 cases and over 300 deaths. And compared to other countries, it's not so high, which I thought was kind of weird, especially since considering Japan was one of the first countries to have cases of COVID in the country. The first case of person-to-person transmission of COVID was discovered in the US on January 30th. But in Japan, the first case was discovered when a man who returned from Wuhan tested positive on January 10th. So that means the virus came to Japan 2 weeks or so before it came to the US. But it has way more, less cases and less deaths. And some people say it's because of the population, because America has so many people. But looking at population size, US has 330 million people. And Japan has, I think, over 120 million. So it's about a third of the population of America. And since America has over 800,000 cases, if you take a third of that, that's about 250, 260,000 cases that Japan should have. And with over 50,000 deaths in America, that should be like 15 or 16,000 deaths happening in Japan. But as you can see, Japan is way, way, way lower than both of those. So this is not a video to like shit on America or say America sucks or they're doing something wrong. That's not at all why I'm making this video. I'm actually talking about that just because for some reason I'm wondering why is Japan much lower than it should be compared to some of the other countries like America. And like I was saying before, the world, if you look at the world death rate, it's about 20%. But if you look at the American death rate, it's about 37%, which is almost double. And if you look at Japan, it's 18%, which is much lower as well. So I started thinking, what are the reasons why America and Japan are so different? Is it like the health of the people? Because I know that America has a lot more obesity and diseases like diabetes. So is that one of the reasons? Or does it have something to do with the healthcare system? Or is it the geography of the country because it's such a big landmass in America, whereas Japan is much more clustered together? Or could it be the culture in Japan? In Japan, naturally, people don't really touch each other in public. We don't shake hands or hug. It's more of a bowing society, so there's not a lot of physical contact. Also, in the case of masks, Japanese people wear masks all year round, whether it be for sickness, protecting themselves from sickness, allergies, or just for fashion. Or could it be the actual food? The food diet of Japan is very different from the American diet, so could it be something to do with the food? But now for the main topic, is Japan doing enough to deal with the coronavirus in this country? First of all, if you want to know what Japan is doing that's different from your country, besides this video, it's probably better to go to the Ministry of Health and Welfare, which has a detailed list of I believe every announcement, every press conference, every video, whatever they've had about Corona since the first day that they announced it, and it's like linked so you can watch the videos or read the articles or see the PDF documents. So it's a very amazing resource that you should check out. I will leave the link of the Ministry of Health and Welfare down below, and if you want to, you can read through all of that. But besides that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I've been seeing personally in Japan, or I guess in the area that I'm in, compared to what I see on the news or on YouTube from other countries. I've heard in Tokyo it's a lot more, I guess, like a ghost town. It's a lot more deserted. There's a lot less people on the trains and on the streets and in the malls or shopping area, and everything's shut down. Restaurants and arcades and cafes and shopping malls, whatever. I don't know what's open, what's not. I'm not exactly sure. I go to visit my girlfriend who lives in Kawasaki, near Kawasaki City in Kanagawa Prefecture. I take a bus, 2 buses, highway buses from my town to like Haneda Airport, and then the bus from Haneda Airport to her town. Now, in terms of job life, of course, it's different depending on the job you have. Since the Prime Minister Abe declared a state of emergency, before that they had closed all the schools, elementary schools, junior high schools, and high schools since February 27th, I believe, and they're still all closed until possibly till the end of May. I'm not sure yet. And then the state of emergency started somewhere in the middle of March, maybe. I'm a teacher and there's no classes, so that's very different. But I know a lot of people who are still going to work regular hours, regular offices, and also a lot of shops and restaurants are open. Maybe because the state of emergency in Japan is different from maybe in your country. Here it's more of a suggestion, so it's like a strongly suggested you should try to stay home and not work. And since it's a state of emergency, but it's voluntary, a lot of companies who can't afford to shut down or have their workers telework, they just don't do it, so they just keep it open and people go to work. And of course, I think like other countries, essential workers need to be on hand all the time. But for example, in my town, it's a lot more deserted than I guess it was before. A lot of the convenience stores are open, supermarkets are open, pharmacies are open, but a lot of the other shops are closed. For example, the Aeon Mall area, the Aeon grocery part is open, but the rest of the mall is closed down. And McDonald's is doing takeaway. I think KFC is doing takeaway as well. I'm not sure about the small mom and pop kind restaurants. Some of them are open, some of them are closed, depending on the owners. When I went to my girlfriend's town near Kawasaki, I was shocked at the amount of people and the amount of things that are open. I felt like there is no state of emergency there.
What are they making? Look at this crowd. So many people on the street. It's so good. Like, hair salons are open, clothing stores are open, wine shops are open, essential, not essential, restaurants are open. Crazy. What the hell is going on? They canceled school, but all the kids are here. What the hell is going on?
So my girlfriend met me at the station to pick me up from my bus, and we were going to go to the grocery store, get some groceries, and cook at her house and eat. But on the way to the grocery store and on the way to her house, we were shocked at the amount of stuff that's open and the amount of people that are out. There was people shopping, there was people eating, there was people hanging out at the park, there was hundreds of kids playing in the park area, and there was just tons of people walking around. People weren't that far apart in terms of social distance. Now I know that this is in Tokyo, and Tokyo is probably much different, but I just was surprised that the whole country is on a state of emergency technically, but obviously some parts are a lot more affected than others. And about Haneda actually looked like a ghost town. When I went there, there was very few staff there. The lights were off, all the shops were closed. I think only the convenience store was open, and there were no passengers at all. I think maybe 2 or 3, and all the boards with all the flight information all had like cancelled on the list. So pretty much there was no flights that I noticed, especially international airport area. Maybe there's some domestic flights, I guess, but the airport seemed pretty dead. The people itself, I think they're taking it much more seriously in Tokyo. Maybe they're taking it seriously in other parts. I don't get around much, and from the news I see, it's like both sides. I see sometimes where like the place is completely empty and everything's closed down, but then on the other hand, I see a lot of places that are completely filled with people, and a lot of people are not social distancing and just hanging out and having fun. Finally, about testing, it's been very rare in Japan. I think it's pretty similar to other countries where they won't test you unless you know somebody who is tested positive for corona, or if you had like a fever for 4 days in a row, and then you can like contact your doctor or hospital and they will recommend a center where you go to get tested. So I don't know if personally anyone who has either been tested and been confirmed positive of corona, or anyone who has had a fever for more than 4 days and has had to go get testing. So I don't know of anyone in my general friends group or circle or work circle, anybody like that. So pretty much I've heard that if you're asymptomatic, or if you have very mild symptoms but don't have a fever, you can't get tested. So that means there's probably tons of people walking around with corona that they don't even know they have it. And so because of the testing is so limited here, as of now, the guidelines are very strict. I'm a little bit worried about that. I think that's probably my biggest concern, is not being able to get tested and knowing who has it and who doesn't. So I think the 3 things that I would say that Japan is not doing well is social distancing, because even though the social distancing rules are there, it's kind of hit and miss, so people are not following it. Something else I think is the emergency, the state of emergency. I feel like it's still more of a suggestion, so people are not following it as much as well. And finally, the testing. I feel the testing is not enough. They need to lower the requirements to get tested. But I think there's a lot of good things that Japan has been doing to keep not only everybody safe and the coronavirus cases down, but also to kind of like ensure that it doesn't spread widely. Of course, the main thing, and like I mentioned before, is masks and hygiene. Every Japanese person usually has a mask with them. Many Japanese people wear masks even before corona was a problem, just during flu season or allergy season. And we kind of got lucky because allergy season was starting up right at the same time as corona, so a lot of people were wearing masks anyway. Also, I feel like shops, restaurants, banks, every place where you go, they have those little spray bottles for alcohol sanitizer. Everybody usually has to get sprayed or use that spray before they enter into a supermarket, for example, or pharmacy or whatever. Some other things, like I mentioned before, is like people are not very physical with each other, and handshaking and hugging is not very common. A lot of the supermarkets, pharmacies, and convenience stores have the plastic sheet now, so it kind of blocks the staff, so they're protected. Also, there's like lines of pieces of tape on the ground to show where to stand, so that's also another way to keep social distance as well. And all the staff are wearing masks, and a lot of staff even wear gloves. Overall, I think the government and the companies and even the people, the society in general, is doing a really good job to be aware of the coronavirus and ways to stop or limit the spread. Like I said, the only thing that I was worried about is the young people. And I know like a lot of teenagers and people, like kids, and don't have symptoms and they probably won't get corona, or they probably, even if they get it, it'll be very mild. But especially in Japan, there's a lot of seniors in Japan. It's a aging gray population, and a lot of the kids live with their grandparents and their parents. So it is very dangerous to have kids, like I showed you in the video, a lot of kids just grouped together playing around and touching things and touching each other, and then going back with their parents back home with their grandparents. And I feel like that would be one of the things that in Japan I would be very worried about. I've seen a lot of guys, especially young guys, who are like too cool for school, not wearing masks when they're inside and not using the pump thing, and they're just like grabbing beer or holding their skateboards and just walking around the supermarket, talking and, you know, laughing and stuff. I feel like they're not too serious about it. And sometimes when I'm walking my dog, I see like groups of like 7 or 8 guys and girls, like teenagers, maybe high school, maybe university, I don't know, but they have like music blasting and they're walking in the streets or skateboarding. I'm pretty sure they're all not brother and sister, so they're all from different families, which means they gather together and then they go back to their families. So it could be a risk for their parents or their grandparents once again. But I'm kind of glad that I'm living in Japan as opposed to some other countries, because I feel like Japanese people are very serious about things, like especially hygiene and health and that kind of stuff. So I feel really safe here, despite some of the stuff that I showed you earlier in this video. Anyway, I thought it would be an informative video and a little bit interesting video to see some perspective from other people in other parts of the country who are dealing with the same issue that you are. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, please share, please go to my channel, because my channel has a lot of videos not about just life in Japan, but a lot of videos about travel and just fun stuff in Asia, and if you're interested in food or travel or entertainment, forget about the corona thing, kind of take your mind off it, then I have some really good videos for you to check out as well. So definitely subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of my videos, because my videos are awesome. OzzyAwesome. Take care and see you next time. Peace.